Hello. Welcome to Errogie Music Live on Sunday, the 9th of March, 2025. I've been told by the analytics on YouTube that I need to make the first 30 seconds or so a bit more entertaining. Otherwise people will start to go home or go elsewhere or do something else with their evening. So right now, normally, most of you would be leaving in droves. I'm not sure that this is gonna help at all. If anything, it might make it faster that you will go. Is anyone still there? Probably not. Maybe there's someone there still there. Or am I sitting here in my shed playing and singing nonsense to no one? No one. I'm gonna stop playing to see if anyone's still there. Is anyone still there? Is anyone still there? Welcome. Errogie Music Live. Hi. Says that some of you are here. I'm going to get straight into this by just, I'm going to just come say hi. Andrea's here. Hey, people are here. Painful. Right, okay, cool. So I'm going to just carry on with some also new stuff here. This thing. I bought this thing. I'm trying to do the 1% improvement Atomic Habits. Have you heard of Atomic Habits? It's a book by a guy, I think he's called James Clear. Make things a little bit better. So I thought I'm going to get an Errogie Music on air thing. Except watch this. When you turn it on, this is great. You can't read it when they don't. It looks really good in person, I promise you. But it's basically, I've just bought a really bright fluorescent light. So it actually looks better turned off. So I'm going to turn it off now. Which ironically would suggest that I'm not on air anymore. Anyway. Right. I'm going to look at Strathspey this week. And if you're new to this channel and you've survived my chat and playing so far, wow. My vibe here is to just kind of like teach what I know about writing tunes in the hope that maybe someone out there who maybe hasn't written a tune before goes, I might decide to write my own tune. Or someone who has written some tunes might go, well, I think I might get back into writing tunes. Or someone who's maybe written some tunes but's a bit stuck might go, oh, I am not stuck anymore. Anyway, that's my vibe. That's what this channel's all about. And I'm going to get straight into how I wrote a Scottish Strathspey. And in a wee while, I'll also tell you why I wrote this Strathspey as an apology to my good friend, Garry Porch. The Strathspey is a Scottish art form, unique to Scotland. It's got this jaggedy rhythm, which a Scotch snap, which I think I mentioned in another video. But so this is a two-part Strathspey of mine in B minor and D. I'm going to put the dots on the screen, and then I'm going to try and play it. So here we go. This is Garry Porch of Avenish. So there you go. That was Garry, Porch of Avenish. Nice to see some comments already. And tune, slow it down. Eric, thank you. Don't you worry, I'm about to play it insanely, painfully slowly. I'm going to go into every single bit of it. So, if anyone was here last week, or if you've watched the video before last week, because it's all just stays on the internet forever, you may recall that we went into arpeggio land, and I made a loose promise to do some... No, I made a solid commitment, not a loose promise, to at some point do some instructional videos on how the heck to play arpeggios, and also why you should play arpeggios or learn them if you want to have more fun. But this tune is a lot about arpeggios, it's a lot about chords. So, yes. As ever, I got started with this tune, as I do with every tune, with just the first little nugget of something I liked. And it's a shape. It's a shape which is left to right, melodically, but it's also a shape vertically. This is the chordal arpeggio thing. I'm going to start with the vertical shape. On the bottom we have F sharp. Then above that we have B. Above that we have D. F sharp, B and D. There is a little A in the first bar as well, but mostly it's just F sharp, B and D. Okay, so I came up with this little first phrase. And as I keep saying again and again and again and again, I just tend to, when I get an idea that I like, I just loop it. So I think when I wrote this, I got the first bar and just went... Okay, and I just played that for ages. And just to talk a bit about the arpeggio, that is, I think it's a bit of the B minor arpeggio. If I play B minor arpeggio, 2 octaves, so this bit is okay. If you want to get really technical, you would call it the second inversion of the B minor arpeggio. Maybe I'll explain what that is. If you're playing a B minor arpeggio first, if you're playing a B minor arpeggio root position, then your first note is B, and you go B to D to F sharp. Okay, and then the first inversion, you go B, D, F sharp, B. I will do a whole separate thing on this, so don't worry if you're not getting this straight away. And the first inversion, you start on the D. So instead of going, you're starting on the D and going. So root position, B to B. First inversion. Second inversion. You start on the F sharp. More on that later, but that's yeah, that's the crack there. It's a little bit of strongly implying B minor, okay? Then the second bar, well, the second phrase, after going, I thought, what if I keep it basically the same, but just change a small amount? So instead of going, I'll put the dots back. Instead of starting on the F sharp, if you're looking at the second bar here, instead of starting on F sharp, I moved that F sharp up a semitone to G. And then you'll see that I also moved the D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth note of the first bar, that gets moved up to an E. So the shape is going from F sharp, B to D to G. B is common to both bars. It's basically a little shape. That's the kind of chordal shape. And with the rhythm, it's... So that's my little shape. And yeah, if this is if anyone's feeling a bit lost, this is just again why arpeggios are good and why studying chords is helpful, and why I've always just loved chords, and it just works its way into tunes. So yeah, I've got to get you guys some arpeggio practice workouts. So the first two bars are that. And at that point I thought, okay, I'm excited. I've got something here. I've got a kind of question phrase. I've got a kind of answer phrase. So what did I do next? I just played those two phrases round a million times. Okay. I'm going to look at some of the comments for a second here, just so I'm not ignoring yous. The dots are in Horo volume. Yes, that's the Tyne the Shade, or Christine Martin's music books. If you don't know who Christine Martin is, you should look her up. She's basically provided books of tunes for books of Scottish session tunes for decades now. When I was a lad, we had loads of her books in the house, so it was actually amazing. I couldn't believe it when she asked me to put some of my tunes in her books. And Gavin Maxwell points out that it's in volume 3. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Eric. Yeah. And Eric says it really moves you. Well, that's amazing. Here's another wee tip I'm going to chuck out there. If you're writing your tune and you've got a question phrase and you're happy with it, and then you've got an answer phrase and you're happy with it, I find for me that I have this thing that I do where once I'm writing the tune, I almost see how little I can change. And what I mean by that is, I've got a question answer phrase. I'm immediately going, is that a first part of a tune? Could I just do that a few times and that's half a tune? That's what I was thinking. And you might be thinking, needs a bit more. And it did need a bit more, but not much more. So my point is just, once I've got a question answer phrase, I want to just maybe have another question phrase, maybe the same as the first question, and maybe a slightly different answer phrase, and just do the absolute bare minimum required to make the first half of a tune work. That's just what I like to do. So I don't go, oh, question phrase, answer phrase, now I must write a million other phrases. I'm thinking, how small can I make this in terms of new information? It's similar to that way of thinking where, how simple can I make this tune? And a lot of musical styles, a lot of musicians from different genres have spoken at length about simplicity being powerful, and my conversations with a lot of students of mine, people often agree that, yeah, their favourite tunes are simple. So that's why I feel like just keeping it simple, keeping it as few new bits of information as possible. It's just a personal preference of mine, but it also seems to kind of work. It's almost like a kind of lazy thinking. So I thought, right, how can I make this first part with just as the bare minimum of new information? I think it needs something new. So I'll just walk you through what I did to make the first part just kind of be complete. So I've got the question. The first answer. Same first question again. And the very common technique. We need a different answer this time. So what I did here, I'm looking at the fourth bar now of the first line. Got question. Bar 1 is question, bar 2 is answer, bar 3 is the same question, bar 4 is different answer. What does it do? I'll tell you what it does. I'm not going to ask you, but it does kind of a little bit of something different to what bar 2 does. So I'm looking at bar 4, it's the answer phrase. Bar 2 is also an answer phrase. Bar 4 is a little bit different. How is it different? If we look at bar 2 kind of goes up. So I thought, I don't want more of the same. Immediately it goes down, which sounds very simplistic, and it is, but the amount of times that simple thing has worked for me. Oh, one answer phrase goes up, I'll make my second answer phrase go down. And that's just something that I think that anyone can get behind. Have two contrasting answer phrases. One of them goes up, the other one goes down. Or you could have, there's other ways to have contrasting answer phrases, but just I would like to encourage you when you're doing your answer phrases to make them contrasting somehow. I won't go into all the different ways you can have contrasting answer phrases. This is just how I did it this time. The first answer phrase goes up, the second one goes down. So bar 4 is the second answer phrase. It also has a bit of a different rhythm. And I think I'm getting more and more ranty in my in my old age. I feel like, you know how chefs really know what they like, particularly ones who are maybe like middle-aged. I guess there's a few famous chefs, on telly. One in particular gets quite angry. I'm not that angry. I'm not Gordon Ramsay, but I really, really, really know what I don't like, and I think that's a really healthy thing when you're writing your music, is to really be okay with not liking something. You know, if you're cooking food, no one has any qualms about not liking their food. You have to just know what you like, know what you don't like, and know why you don't like it. Where am I going with this? I have a thing that I think that annoys me about tunes that I've written in the past that I no longer like, and I notice it in other tunes I hear, is that there's not enough rhythmic variation. Turn off my phone. Not enough rhythmic variation in the phrasing of a tune. In this case, I'm gonna change the tune and make it the way I don't like it, just to make this point, right? Okay, I'll put the dots back on the screen. So bar 4 is currently a bit rhythmically different to bar 2. Just to remind you, bar 2 and bar 4 are related to each other because they're both answer phrases. Bar 1 is a question phrase, bar 3 is a question phrase, 2 and 4 are the two different answers. Now bar 4 is currently a bit rhythmically different to bar 2. What's different about it? Well, it's got 3 Scotch snaps in a row. Short, long, short, long, short, long, and then finally long, short. Okay, whereas if you look at bar 2, it's got the Scotch snap, it's got short, long, then it's got the long, short, and then you've got short, long, long, short. Now that's maybe, you could argue, just not wildly different, but it is different enough. And so yeah, this is what it's like if I make it the way I currently hate it. I'm going to change bar 4 to be rhythmically the same as bar 2. And now here's the way I have written it. Now to me, that is a small change, but it's a humongous difference. And so I can't encourage you enough to do this in your answer phrases. Make your rhythm different. It doesn't have to be wildly different, but if it's exactly the same, I just think it won't be as cool. It won't be as satisfying. So that's just I'm going through this tune, but what I'm hoping is that by going through this tune I can chuck out general advice, and it's not just hypothetical. I'm using my tunes to show you real examples of why I think these tips work. So, question, answer, same question, different answer because it goes down, and different answer because it's a different rhythm. So you could do that. You could write your next tune with that. When you have a question, answer, make your second answer contrast either in terms of whether it's up or down, and contrast rhythmically. And just try things. Again, it's not right or wrong, but just like chuck out as many different ideas as you can. Alright, so we're almost there with the end of the first part, because what happens next is much of the same. And I'm going back to what I said before, it doesn't need loads of new information. In fact, it needs to not have loads of new information. It kind of needs to just be a little bit more of the same before taking us into the B part. So there is some new information. Let's go from the start of line 2, or bar 5, as you can see. Once again, we've got our same question phrase. And it looks like we've got our same first answer phrase. It looks like bar 6 is basically the same as bar 2, except it goes different at the end. Starts the same. And then the end of this bar 6 is taking us somewhere different. And what I felt was, I feel like it's going towards a new key in this second part. And the new key is D major. This whole first part has been in B minor. And I will do another video on relative majors and minor keys. But D major is the relative major key of B minor. I'm sure some of you know that, but I feel like just saying it again. So it's like the happy sibling, whereas the minor one is like less happy. So I was feeling a bit of D major, and I thought, how do I get there? I need to kind of take this B part and finish it so that it's catapulting us forward into D. So I'm going to go from the second line. It's kind of like just wrapping things up. And finally, that last note, the A, is taking us to the first note of the third line, and it's also the first note of the second part, which is D. So the last 2 bars of the first part. Okay, now looking at bar 9, we're now in the B part. Bar 9 is all of the notes of a D major triad, a D major arpeggio. There isn't even any passing notes. If you're not sure what passing notes are, they're notes that just take you in between bigger notes of the tune, which have less of a chordal kind of say. But all these notes, the first note is D, up to A. And an F sharp in the middle. And that's the notes of a D major arpeggio. And if I play this first bar, the second part, it's those notes, not in that order, but it is those notes. Which, when I'm doing it like that, playing it at that speed, and doing it that, having just said this is the notes of a D major arpeggio, it almost feels a little bit babyish and a little bit simplistic to go, write a phrase with the notes of an arpeggio. It's almost a little bit painting like numbers. That's what I feel now, except I know that it's fine, and I know I also like it this way, and other people play it, so it's not It's not a problem. But again, if you're playing arpeggios, the more you play arpeggios, and you can just start to try and write like this. So you could try and write a phrase using the notes of an arpeggio. Doesn't have to be a Strathspey, it could be a jig, anything, any arpeggio. Just make yourself go, what would a phrase sound like with these notes? See what happens. Okay, so that's the first bar, the second part. It's very strongly saying we are now in D. There's like absolutely no doubt. A chord player could put another chord beneath it, but without that, it's very much D. And the bottom note of D chord is D, and it's the first note. What happens with the second bar? It's kind of a little bit the same as what I did in the first part. So you recall the first part, bar 1, we have this arpeggio question phrase, and in the second bar I just changed it a little bit. So I kind of did the same thing here in the second part. Alright, so watch the first bar. As you know, I thought, how little can I change this bar? Again, that's me just trying to say, can I basically have the same phrase again? Not exactly the same phrase, that's too boring. It's boring, but maybe I just change it a tiny bit. So what did I do? I just changed the first note to be... So that means that the first 4 notes of bar 10 are... instead of the first 4 notes of bar 9 becomes, and then instead of going, it goes. So it's actually very similar to the first part conceptually. The first bar of the second part, second bar of the line. Okay. And then the third bar, again, a little bit of changing. I felt that the end of bar 10 was descending towards an F sharp. So I'll play from bar 9. So this third bar of the second line, it's just like the first bar. It's essentially the question phrase again, but it's not quite the same. So let me go into this, right? We've got question and answer form, like we had in the first part. Bar 9 is the question. Bar 10 is the first answer. Bar 11 is the question again, but it starts on an F sharp. Why did I start on an F sharp and not just repeat the question exactly the same? Here's why. I will play it. I will play bar 11 exactly the same as bar 9. So in other words, I'm going to do question, answer, identical question again. I just thought it's a bit of a leap, a clunky leap down from the end of bar 10 to go down to D. It's just a bit neater to just go down to F sharp. F sharp's in the D major chord. So instead of going bar 9, bar 11, the third bar of the third line is now. Apart from that, bar 11 is the same as bar 9. Okay, let's take a wee break for a second here. Look at some of the comments. Many arpeggios in a major key can risk a melody in the minor. Tell me more about what you mean there. Say, yes, you could tickle the high E even in those 2 bars. The 4th bar could use a D instead of a first B. Okay, let me think about that. 4th bar could use a D instead of... Yes, I agree with that. Okay, let me know if any of this is not making sense to you. So it's basically just I'm using question and answer, but minimally changing things, and just thinking about chordal stuff, and then really the tune just kind of emerges. That's like, it's almost like the tune is an emergent property. I heard that phrase in someone talking about neuroscience, that maybe consciousness might be like an emergent property of brain activity. Anyway, maybe tunes are an emergent property of stringing together mathematical shapes that are pleasing. Food for thought on a Sunday evening. Are tunes just an emergent property, wow, of sound being organised in mathematically logical ways? I feel very much like I dislike that idea, but I also like the feeling of disliking an idea. I think you should be open to an idea if you dislike it. I think quite often those are the paradigm shifts that happen in people's brains and societies when you get a new idea that's uncomfortable at first, but after a while you maybe get into it. Anyway, alright, I'm going to carry on with this tune. We're almost there. And we have a yes from Michael Bishop. Are you referring to the question of could tunes be emergent properties? Emergent, yes, okay, right. We're almost there, guys. So we've got, let's start at the B part again, which is the third line. And then so this fourth bar of the third line, it's rhythmically different to the second bar. Just to recap, the third line is question phrase bar 9, first answer phrase bar 10, question phrase again bar 11, but slightly modified at the start, but basically still the same question. And now we have our second answer phrase, which is rhythmically different, and also it's different in terms of it goes down in pitch. So it's the same thing again. So I'm going to play the third line now, and I'm going to make it the way I hate it. I'm going to make this fourth bar of the third line, or this second answer phrase, I'm going to make it rhythmically the same as the first answer. And I hope you hate it as much as I do. So I made it the same rhythmically. I also made that it didn't go down in pitch. Wasn't that horrendous? Oh god, that's like that's horrible. Here's the way it is written. Okay, we also have a long note in this last bar of the third line. We have a long note in this second answer phrase, which I think just provides a little bit of relief from the intense Strathspey-iness that we've had for ages now. And it also just cascades us nicely down to the start of the last and final line of this tune. What does the final line of the tune do? It does just, well, it's the same question phrase again. It's also got the same first answer phrase. What do the last two bars of this tune do? I'm going to try and answer that by saying, what do the last two bars of any tune kind of have to do? I think the last two bars of any tune have to, from my own personal taste, have to not just finish the tune's forward flowing energy and kill it dead. In other words, it has to mean that when you get to the end of this tune, you're not just like, oh, that's that, and stop. The last phrase of a tune has to kind of just boot you back to the start of the tune. And I know some of you guys have heard me say this a lot, but I'm just going to keep saying it. Because I'm a big believer in just having a few core principles and just repeating them. Because they're always, when you get a good core principle or a good creative idea, you can use it again and again and again and again and again in different ways. It doesn't sound the same, but the principle is the same. And I think a good tune at the end of it, it's what it doesn't do. It doesn't just like finish and then leave you unable to remember how the first part went, or having to climb a hill to get back to the first part. The last phrase of the tune sends you back into the start of the tune. So that's what I tried to do here. So what did I do? Okay, I'm just going to show you. We have been in B minor for the first part of this tune. Alright, now we've gone to D major for our second part. But we know that we're in the second part, we're having to try and go back to the first part again, which is in B minor. So a little bit of chordy journey takes place here, and the chords are implied by the notes I picked. So yeah, I very deliberately thought of what would be a good chord progression which lands you back in B minor. And here's what I was thinking. I'm going to play the whole last line. So the second last bar of the tune it kind of sits around A chord, maybe an A7, and then you'll see the very last bar we've got this A sharp. Why is that there? It's because I'm trying to imply an F sharp major chord. Here's an F sharp major arpeggio. F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, and F sharp. And I know that if you want to go to B minor, you can go 5 notes up the scale from B minor. 5 notes up the scale from B minor. Here's your B. What's that? 5 notes. 1 note is C sharp. 2 notes is D. 3 notes is E. 5 notes is F sharp. So it's called a perfect cadence. F sharp major or minor to B minor, those notes are always going to go well together. So that's what I tried to do here. I'm just looking at the comments here, and we have David Francis in the chat. Hello David, lovely to see you here. Not sure about using arpeggios to make melodies being babyish. Classic Scottish fiddle music uses them all the time. Stirling Castle, Duke of Gordon's birthday, etc. Enjoy this session. Thank you, David. And yeah, I take your point there. I maybe that says more about a fear of mine. Maybe I have a fear that I'm like afraid of writing something that is a bit like, I don't know, not quite got. Maybe I'm afraid of writing something that's not quite elegant enough or something, or a bit clunky. So I take your point about existing tunes, and I totally agree on other composers past of the work of in the work of other past composers. Yes, arpeggios are used to great effect and done so elegantly and stylishly. I think I'm just afraid of not being cool. Aren't we all? I don't know. I'm afraid of writing something which is just not But let's see these. You're talking about Stirling Castle, Duke of Gordon's Birthday. Yeah, check out those tunes. And yeah, I'm thank you for your feedback there, David. It's really nice to have you here. David's an incredible musician and has done a lot of good for the folk scene in Scotland and abroad. And yeah, so that's what I was trying to do. Finish on an F sharp major, and it's quite tricky to play. I remember teaching this to the fiddle players in the session A9, and there might have been a small cursive word when they got to that bit. I have to say, I don't feel like I can play it very well. But I hope it takes you back to the start of the tune, and then you're back to the start again. And I always say this, but it's like a good tune is like a loop that you can't get out of, whether you want to or not. So when you're writing your tunes, just think about not having the energy just come to a dead end at the end of the tune. So I'll now play this second half of the tune doing that. I'm going to make this second half of the tune to demonstrate my point. I'm going to make this second part of the tune just kind of come to a halt and not really take you back to the first part. Not quite sure what I'm going to do here, but it's not going to end on an F sharp major chord. So that's what I would call like finishing on a full stop. If you're going to use a language comparison, corollary, it's like you've just finished on a full stop. But finishing on an F sharp major, it just makes you want to go back to start again. Oh, thank you, David. You love the F sharp major. Thank you so much. So the chord list, this tune's all about trying to imply chords. Because I love chords, and I guess I'm a frustrated chord player. I'm going to play the tune now. So there you go, and as you can tell, I got a little bit carried away with trying to imply the heck out of other chords. So a big fan of recapping when I'm trying to learn stuff. So I try to recap when I'm teaching, because I think when we're learning stuff, we're just being bombarded with information. If we don't recap, we lose it. We lose it. So to recap, arpeggios. Go and learn arpeggios, and I have to do what I said I would do. I have to provide some arpeggios. I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to send somehow an arpeggio workout. Here's what I like to do. playing it very fast, but that's the kind of thing. Just implying chords and just get those so that they're under your fingers and you don't have to think about them so much. What else did I do? Rather than just implying chords, very much trying to change as little as possible from phrase to phrase. So I had the first phrase, change it just a wee bit. Okay. And then the second answer phrase in both parts, and this is one of my central messages. I feel like a politician saying that. My core message is to, in your second answer phrase, if you're doing question, answer, question, different answer, in your second answer phrase, make it rhythmically different. Just even slightly different. That has a big effect. And also what I did here was I made it just go the opposite direction melodically. So your second answer phrase has a lot of potential to either kind of kill the energy or keep it going or even up the energy. So make your second answer phrase different from your first answer phrase, and the key ways that I recommend trying are make it go the opposite direction musically and be different rhythmically. That's if you take away nothing else from anything, that would be the thing that would make me most happy. Okay, so generally just changing as little as possible with my questions and answers. That's most of the first part. The end of the first part just takes you into the second part, and the second part is in the relative major key. It's a different key and it's in the relative key, so you could try that. And again, it's just implying the hell out of the new key. And again, you've got question, answer, slightly different question, and again the second answer phrase is different rhythmically and different in terms of pitch, goes a different way. That's it. And then you're on the home straight, and just make sure, my advice is, you don't have to just try making the tune doesn't just finish on a full stop, but it finishes in a way it takes you back to the start. And the way I did it here was I went for what was called chord 5, which sits above chord 1, and if chord 1 is the first chord of the whole tune, whatever that is, we're in B minor, so we went up 5 notes from B in the scale of B minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, F sharp. It could have been an F sharp minor chord, but some kind of F sharp chord, we know that those notes are going to probably sink back down to B minor. So you could make the last chord of your tune, whatever your tune is, you make the last chord be strongly and in arpeggioistic fashion. Is arpeggioistic a word? Be implying the notes of chord 5. And that's something that you can try, and there's probably a million different examples of making that work, and they won't sound the same. So that's what I'm talking about having core principles. So yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments. I'm not sure what the green symbol is, Eric, but you're saying Brill Impro. Thank you so much. Into Chardas, wow. You tried some ornaments at the bar ends, and yes, you can influence the rhythm. Yeah, you can use ornaments. That's something I would say. Ornaments are like a separate process to the composing process, and yes, you can use them to keep things exciting, but like I prefer to make that a separate, that's like once the tune's written, when you're writing the tune, I try to make the tune itself be different. A good test of a tune, if you think you've written a tune that's good, that you like, is type it into Sibelius and get the machine to play it back, and because it's just zero emotion. It's just like, here's the frequencies in this rhythm, and if it still sounds good, that's quite a good road test. That's a wee side point. Michael Bishop, best lesson so far. Thank you, appreciate that, Michael. Honestly, tonight I was a bit tired, and I was like, I think I'm tired, but then I just told myself, I was like, get your arse into the shed. You are doing this. You're basically not missing this unless you're ill or gigging. That's it. You've got the new thing here, which is so hilariously rubbish. I wish you could see how cool that looks in person. Maybe that's some saying. Right, I'm going to finish this off by telling you the story. Why the heck did I write this tune? Maybe you've heard this story if you've been in one of my gigs. I do tell it now and again, and I have to be careful that because this is on the internet, that I don't like dox my friend. by giving away his address. So I'm going to try and be careful. I have to also be careful not to give away. There's actually 3 addresses. How do I tell this story without giving away addresses? Okay, so my friend lives on the west coast of Scotland, and I'd seen him at a festival in a beautiful part of the world called Applecross. Let me know if you've been to Applecross. It's utterly gorgeous. It's just like stunning. I was there at a festival. My friend had driven up. My friend is called Garry Porch. I can tell you his name because he's been on the screen all night. Really lovely guy. And I said to him, "It's my birthday in 2 weeks' time. Are you coming up to my mum and dad's house for my birthday?" My mum and dad live near Errogie on one side of Loch Ness. And he was like, "Yeah, okay." And 2 weeks later, I was in my flat in Bruntsfield in Edinburgh, where I lived at the time. And it was like 5 p.m. I had a very nice birthday. I was a little bit maybe worse for wear. And my phone went. It was my mum and dad. And I'd already spoken to them that morning. It's nice to speak to them again. Almost nice to speak to them. And they were like, "Adam, your friend Gary's here." And the blood just drained from every single capillary in my face and my stomach. And I suddenly remembered with horrific clarity that I'd said to him 2 weeks prior in Applecross, "I'm having a party at my parents' house, come along." So Garry went on the phone, and Garry, by the way, I know for a fact he's watching this. I'm sorry, Garry. He went on the phone, and he'd turned up, he'd driven from the west coast, at least 2-hour drive, and he'd also picked up 2 German hitchhikers and convinced them that there was this amazing party going on over by Loch Ness. So the 3 of them had turned up, and there was no party. There was my mum and dad in almost complete silence, except for the sound of them sipping a glass of red wine and watching the last part of a crime drama on the telly. That was it. And that's when they phoned me, and I just had to kind of say, "I'll phone you back, Garry," and I had to scramble to think of a solution. Now, I've mentioned this gentleman in some of my other videos, John Somerville, amazing composer. I'm going to have him in the shed one of these days. You probably know some of his tunes. If you don't, I cannot speak highly enough of his composing. But I knew, anyway, he was at his family's home on the other side of Loch Ness. And I said, I told him what a massive mistake I'd just made. And I said, "John, look, can I cut to the chase? Are you able to have a party like now?" And he just went, "Oh, I'll see what I can do. I'll speak to my parents." His parents are lovely people. Spoke to them. He phoned me back in 5 minutes and said, "Yeah, that's fine." So I felt like I was in the middle of the ocean and someone had chucked a life belt from a passing cruise ship or something. And then I phoned back the house and I spoke to my good friend Garry, who was doing his very, very best to be calm, but I could tell there was a vibe in the house there. And I said, "Garry, I know you've driven a long way, but how would you feel about driving a little bit further, just into Inverness and round Loch Ness a bit?" And him and the 2 German hitchhikers did make that journey, and the Somerville family did host a spontaneous party, and they had a very nice time, I believe. And that was that. And then I really felt like I need to make this up to my friend. So I don't know if this is an existing tradition in Scotland or not, but I wrote an apology tune. A tune is a way of saying sorry. If anyone knows of any other traditional tunes written as apologies, let me know. I'd love to know about it. Maybe it should be maybe the whole world should start writing tunes and writing apologies. I don't know. So this was my tune written from my good friend Garry Porch of Avenish. And I hope you've enjoyed this evening. It's been nice to get some good feedback and comments, and thank you all for tuning in. And if you like this, like and subscribe. And I also have a Patreon community who get loads of extra stuff. loads of extra music that I've written, and I just take them on my journey in a lot more detail. And there's also a tune writing kind of online circle. We have a wee group, and last night we actually had a Zoom meeting, me and some of the students, and we got into their own tune writing journey, and I was able to be a little bit more, hopefully, helpful to them in their journey, and also great for me just to hear about their journey a bit more. So yeah, let me know if you, well, that's just there, that link to that are in the comments, but for now I'm going to say thank you very, very much, and I hope you have a really nice evening. And if you're watching this in the future, I hope you've had a nice time watching this. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be doing this every Sunday unless I can't for some reason, but I'm pretty much just going to be doing this live streaming thing. And yeah, I'm Adam Sutherland. My mission is to try and teach what I know so far about writing tunes. I am also a student, and I will always be a student, and I just want to share some of my excitement about what I feel is traditional music's absolute bedrock art form, because without the tunes and the songs, what would traditional music be? So yeah, I thank you all for the kind comments. Thank you, David. And yeah, if you feel like ever telling anyone else about this little wee corner of internet, I'd be very grateful, or just sharing, liking and subscribing. And I'll stop repeating myself now and wish you all a very, very, very good evening, or if you're in the future, good luck with your writing, and I will say goodbye. Goodbye.